2025 Village District of Eidelweiss budget hearing for the annual meeting. This is required by New Hampshire State statute and Department of Revenue Administration regulations. And we're going to go over the operating budget for the general government and the operating budget for the water system. And we'll go over the warrant articles that are going to be proposed for the meeting in March. At the beginning of the handout, the first page has this document on it that says grant portal. Everybody see, you have a copy of that? We're going to look at this first because this is influencing everything else you're going to see in the operating budgets for the general government and the warrant articles. This is the screenshot of FEMA's grant portal, where they manage all of the projects that they're working on with Eidelweiss. And this is all based on the storm we had in July of 2023. So we're close to a year and a half ago. And you see that on this sheet, running down the left side where it says project number, you see that there are 5 projects. And the very first one, project ending with 522, is for the water system damage that happened on Grisson during that July storm. This is the only reimbursement that the village has gotten from all of the damage that happened in July. This is what was submitted by the previous board, and this is to pay the contractor, the water operator, who reinstalled the water main that ran down Grisson that got wiped out when the road got wiped out by the floodwater that came downhill and took out the Grisson culvert and the road. So we paid the contractor $9,600 to put that water main back in, and FEMA reimbursed us for $7,200. That's 75%. So the reason you're looking at this sheet is these are the possible reimbursements that FEMA can do for work that we complete and submit the invoices to them. And then they decide whether they're going to pay them or not. There's no guarantee that you do the work, pay for the work, submit the invoices to them, and then they pay it. That has to be understood, because everything that we decided to do with this budget is based on that, is that it's possible to get 75% back, but there's no guarantee. So we're proposing a system where we test as we go, and we budget as we go. We're doing cash flow management based upon what we learn about what FEMA is really going to do. So we're going to invest a little bit of money as we go into this year into the projects that they have specified here. We're going to submit the invoices as soon as we can. As soon as we get certain pieces of work finished, we're going to submit the invoices and time it as how long FEMA turns that around and gives us 75% back, and reuse that cash and reinvest it as we go. So we use the operating budget, and we'll point out the areas in the operating budget that we are going to use in this cash flow plan, and warrant articles that we are using for that. If you look at the second project, you'll see that it says that the project was for Eidelweiss culvert damage, and it says the work was fully complete. These are 2 culverts one on Bergdorf and one on Barden. We had 3 major culvert damaged. Grissom was a spectacular damaged culvert, and that road is still closed because the first estimate we got from a contractor would be that it was over $500,000 to fix the culvert problem there. So that road remains closed as we come at it with other ideas, possibly. But these 2 culverts were fixed. FEMA put a value based on the information that we gave them of $77,172, and they're saying if they reimburse us for 75% of that, they're going to send us $57,879. That gives you an idea, is that as we tell you our planning on our first cash investment this year and how we're gonna go about it, it's possible that FEMA will be sending us this $57,879.50. That's completed. The next project, you see, has a dollar amount of $217,198.29. That's to fix the asphalt roads that were damaged in Eidelweiss due to that July storm of 2023. And if we fix the asphalt on roads like Appenville Way, the Playground Hill, and St. Moritz had damage, and I think there's 8 or 9 other roads. The total would be, that they're estimating would be that we applied for $77,172.66, and if they gave us 75% of that back, that would be $57,879.
No, don't you mean 217? 217.
The 160.
You already-
Yeah.
you already-
You already did that.
So, should have gone down.
Two-
one,
two se-
yes.
217, right?
Gotcha.
It's
Yeah.
kind of small.
Be 162,898.72.
Yep.
Now we get to the big business. The fourth project down is roads and ditch profiles. The dollar amount they're estimating for this project is $463,083,
83.
$820.15.
Yep.
Yeah.
75% of that would be $362,000. This is 40 gravel roads that they have identified sections and did GPS coordinates of exactly what the sections are. It's ditching the roads, putting 3 inches of gravel on top of the roads, and cleaning out culverts. They're saying every culvert in Eidelweiss, they counted up to 290 culverts will get cleaned under this expense. I did a rough calculation reading down the list of the 40 roads of their estimation of how much ditch material they say has to come out of the edges of the road. And I stopped when I was over 1,000 cubic feet of material has to come out. That's a lot. We have to figure out where we will put it.
So what does obligated mean?
It means to FEMA that FEMA has obligated the money to this project.
Okay.
Just FEMA.
They're saying they've done everything that they need to do under their regulations to check to see whether everything is correct and everything is understood and everything is documented and has been inspected, and that I signed off on it personally, that I'm not violating federal law by misrepresenting what's on the ground here that they say they saw.
Okay.
But here's the key. FEMA, when they obligate the money, may turn it over to the state of New Hampshire. It doesn't come directly to us. They turn it over to Homeland Security, New Hampshire Homeland Security Emergency Management. So, for a year, I've been meeting online with a group of 5 people. 4 of them will be from FEMA, and 1 of them will be from New Hampshire Homeland Security Emergency Management. Every meeting has 5 people on their side and me, and they give me tasks to do, and they had the highway guys. They came here a couple of times. They spent all day with the highway guys, went around, took pictures, measured stuff, took GPS coordinates, and they filled their database of information. They may know more about the roads than a lot of people in Eidelweiss. So it was a good question you asked that. Obligated means that they're obligated to give the money to the state of New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire is not obligated to give it to us. We're submitting our bills to New Hampshire Homeland Security. And the woman from Homeland Security that I've been dealing with actually lives in Ossipee, which is kind of convenient. So then the last thing is the Grissom Culvert. And if you see next to Grissom Culvert, it says A and E only. I had to ask what that was. That's architecture and engineering only. So just the engineering for the fix of the culvert, they're saying that that's a budget of $70,000. Okay, so we would like to do is all of this work. we don't, if you added up how much they're saying it would all cost, we're not asking the voters to approve a budget that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But do you have to do the work first before?
You have to do the work first. You have to submit the invoice. You don't have to complete all of the work. You don't have to complete the project. If you do a certain part of a project, say that we ditched Little Shore Drive. If we have invoices of material fuel that we used, we had the count of the hours of, we can charge them for our equipment, if we use our equipment and our labor, if our guys do it, we can submit invoices to them and they'll pay that. So that's what we wanna do is, between the highway department and us, and possibly contractors, we wanna figure out how to get going on this as soon as we can with the season. Get as much done safely and correctly as we can to get the first invoices going to them, to test them out, to see whether we're gonna get any money from them. If we find out that something changed in Washington DC, like there's no more FEMA anymore in the middle of this.
They're talking about FEMA being next.
Yes.
Right.
We're watching that, and FEMA is sending me emails saying, here's the court that just overturned the latest threat to FEMA. And I'm like, we're doing budgeting here,
It's
and
nuts.
FEMA may be gone by the time we get to the annual meeting, for all I know.
Right.
So we have a plan to handle whatever happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because that's all I could think of, I mean, like, everything's going away.
Believe me, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to do this and how to manage cash flow and see how far we can go on what we have as resources, and then test to see how fast it is, if they do it, that it comes to us, and how we can use that immediately to continue to do more work. And these projects have deadlines that end next year.
What I was gonna ask.
So that's another key to this is, in our planning, we know that it's highly possible, if FEMA in New Hampshire gives us money this year, and we believe they're gonna continue to do it into next year too, at the end of this construction season, we'll see where we are, plan on what we're going to propose next year against next year's deadline, which is in August. So a lot of this is dependent on weather, on government politics, on cash flow, on availability of contractors,
Okay.
and our own equipment holding together. Because we know what can go wrong, and does go wrong when you're planning this kind of stuff. So that's 14 minutes, but this is the basis of everything else you're gonna hear. We're gonna have Water lead us through the operating budget, and when we get to certain line items, we're gonna point out that that's a FEMA-related line item, cash flow as part of our strategy. Any questions on FEMA and Homeland Security? I hope that's, I was wondering whether I could explain it or not, but you get the idea.
Commissioners spent hours and hours and days on this, so work well done.
You wanna take us through?
Okay, everybody has a copy of the budget? All right, I'd like to just go over some high-level stuff, and then we can go into a Q&A session. Here, let's take a look at it from a 10,000-foot point of view. The left-hand side is just the operations highway budget, and the budget that the voters approved in 2024 was $371, and what we're proposing is for 2025 is $785,887. That's a 1% increase, just a 1% increase. In the middle column, which is the water, I'm just going to give you the percent increase overall, since that doesn't come from tax money, but that's only an increase of 1.9%. And then if you take the combined budgets, operations highway plus water, and take our proposed 2025 versus budget, or excuse me, what was voted and approved in 2024, it's only an increase of 1.2%. So we're trying to be very, very careful with the the voters' money, the taxpayers' money, compared to what was approved last year. When you take a look at the big ticket line items, really the biggest is the payroll. On the operation side, payroll constitutes 44% of the entire budget, both in 2024 budget and in 2025 budget, right around 44%. If you do it on a combined, it's a little less. It's more like 35%, because most of the payroll comes out of the operations and highway, but there is some that's allocated toward the water system as well. The other big ticket item is the highway and streets, obviously, and that constitutes 46% of the entire revenue on the operation side. But what I forgot to pull out before I did my analysis was highway and streets also includes the salaries paid to the DPW department. Whereas before, when I gave you payroll, that was included administrator and all the other employees in DPW. But still, beyond just payroll, the highway and streets, there is a lot of big ticket items. And I think that's where we're going to spend, we really want to spend the money this year, which we weren't able to last year, on gravel and asphalt to do the roads and then test the FEMA reimbursements, see if that really happens. So we're going to be starting with money from the budget, and then we're looking at some other areas to get money from, which we'll be talking about in one of the other warrants. And then, as Mark said, as we start laying down gravel and working on the roads, we'll stick those invoices in as soon as possible and see what happens on the FEMA side. But the idea is to go as far as we possibly can on the roads with the budget that we're proposing. So that said, like I said, the big ticket items are salaries. That includes employee benefits, which includes their FICA and Medicare taxes, and then all the line items that go into the highway maintenance. Those are the big gorillas that drive our budget. So, does anybody have any specific line items they would like to discuss?
Yeah, just a question. I'm looking at the truck subtotal, and
What?
we spent on the second page toward the top, very top.
Okay.
We spent a lot more than we budgeted last year, but we're not budgeting for much more than we did last year.
I'm glad you
So
asked that,
I'm just
Bob.
wondering if you can explain what happened there.
I'm very glad you asked that. I omitted, when I said that we wanted to spend money last year on working on the roads, because we had a budget for gravel and asphalt that we really didn't spend, because our grader was out of commission for a long period of time, and we spent $34,000. Yeah, to get that repaired. All right, so that's why that's higher in the actual than in our proposed for 2025. Because we had the extraordinary one-time, non-recurring events. Well, in the future there'll be other breakdowns, but this was a really bad year, an extraordinary year for the grader just having issues. So another one, just to point out again what I'm talking about is, if you take a look at gravel, the voters approved 20,000 last year, and we're still putting 20,000 this year, but in reality, we only spent 7,000. Again, that's because our grader was out of commission. But it is our intent to spend everything in the budget this year on the roads. So everything we have in asphalt, everything we have in gravel, and then some, with some additional monies we're gonna talk about on the warrant. And take it as far as we can, on as many roads as we can, and if we get reimbursed by FEMA, as Mark said, we'll start reinvesting that right back into continuing on road work.
Right, but the bottom line, there were pluses and minuses all year long. So if I look at legal expenses, it's the flip of that, the other side. We know what happened, but.
Yes,
Yes.
we had a one-time extraordinary legal expense, yes.
But at the end of the day, it's only 1.2% increase over the year, so.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, you're right.
So we're just pointing out that last year, we started with a budget of 20,000 for gravel, and we only put $7,000 of gravel down. $13,000 went back into the unassigned fund balance. We're gonna see that we have a warrant article asking the voters to let us take that 13,000 back and put it on the road and get reimbursed by FEMA possibly. So that's a little part, these are one of the little triggers in our strategy of how to do cash flow management and invoice FEMA. So we intend on using 20,000 plus 13,000 from a warrant article if the voters vote for it, and more if we see that this is working in our favor. We have another warrant article to actually do a loan, and we won't use that warrant article unless it's going the way we think it's will benefit of us to do it. So we know we're gonna put at least 13,000 and 20,000 down, but we could put even more down if things go right.
Okay, and everybody understands that.
Assuming that FEMA's gonna pay you back.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody understands, we already have that 13,000 because it wasn't spent last year, it's now in the unassigned fund balance. But we have to get the voter approval to draw it from the unassigned balance.
Put it back in the gravel.
Wasn't spent, right.
Does the FEMA money end up in the unassigned and have to be then moved, or how does that work?
Because it's a reimbursement,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to go back into the unassigned
So-
fund balance like the unused
Good, okay.
tax money does.
Right.
So we can use it immediately. That's a big part of our
Can it
strategy.
be used anywhere in the budget, or is that, have to go to a specific project when they, that money, be just money?
We intend on using it.
I understand that.
Yes.
I don't know, do you think it can, the reimbursement?
You use it for what it was set
Originally
for,
set
what it was
for.
originally
So
set for.
you'd continue that
So if
work.
it's set for roads, we continue to work with roads.
Yeah,
Right, so the point, his question is, you can't take the gravel money and put it in employee benefits.
Correct,
That's an
Right.
example.
correct.
Right,
One other thing I'd like to point out, it's not one of the big items, but it's still a tough nut you have to swallow, because it's a 13% increase, and it's something that is what it is, insurance. We already know what the insurance is for 2025, so it's not even proposed, that's a known number, and that's 13% greater than it was in the budget 2024, which was pretty accurate to what was actually spent in 2024, so.
1.2.
You're right. Any other questions on any particular line items people have concerns with or questions about?
Do you wanna do the water, Nancy?
Yeah. So the second column is the water budget. And if you just wanna look through, nothing major. So it is a small increase from, you have the percentage.
Yep. Well, 1.9% total.
Yeah. Over last year's budget. SCADA was a line item of $5,000 last year, and we're proposing $20,000 this year. We have to update that computer, and we're already in the process of working with the SCADA company to get that computer installed, but it hasn't been installed yet, so I don't believe we're going to be able to put that as a 2024 expense, even though we ordered it in 2024. Because we're late enough in the year that the auditor's gonna, we're getting up right on that deadline where the auditor says, it's a 2025 expense. So we moved that money from the 15,000 quote that we have and that we know the computer's gonna cost, so we added that to that. So it's the very last line under the water.
Telemetry SCADA.
The telemetry SCADA, so that's a significant increase, and that's why, is because the computer that we're using still runs Windows 8. So it's really time for an upgrade. So that's one of the big things on that. Most other things are still right in line with last year's proposed budgets and approved budgets.
Do you want to talk about our intended goal as far as the
One of the
fee,
Yep.
annual fee?
Yes, so we've done some math already, and we plan on taking the water fee from the $550 that we paid last year down to $525, with the thought process that the next year we're gonna reduce it a little bit more to a flat 500, and then do what we can to keep that at the $500. One of the things when we go through the warrant is there's a water project that is proposed to be paid for by taxes. This is a shift and an intentional shift. What we have noticed over the course of years is a bunch of years ago, when we did the Jungfrau to Rheineck project, it was a 50-50 agreement that wound up passing at the annual meeting. So 50% came out of a water fee, 50% came out of taxes. A few years ago, when we did the water tank, it was 100% out of taxes.
The Rheineck Tower.
The Rheineck, yeah. So,
An $893,000 loan that we took on.
right,
The voters decided on the floor to
To-
not fund that through water fees. They decided they wanted to do it through taxes.
through taxes.
So Nancy's pointing out, the voters have changed from water fees for capital expenses to taxes. So we say,
Okay,
we're doing, that's gonna be our standard procedure then. We're
Right.
gonna do capital improvements through taxes on the water system. We're gonna fund the operation through the fee.
out of the water fee.
And try to keep that flat as we can. Expenses like electricity may go up, or other expenses, but we're gonna try to keep it at a steady 500 and do everything else through taxes.
Yeah, for the
My only
capital,
question-
for
my
the
only
capital
question-
projects.
It's still increasing the budget by 55,000, right?
What?
Grand totals, it says 55,866. So it's 258 versus 253 last year. How do we lower our fee and have the budget higher?
Cause the fee was much more than the budget.
Oh,
Yes,
what?
That's what the previous boards did as standard procedure, is set the water fee
Higher than-
higher.
Okay, okay.
Much higher.
That explains it, okay.
That's why
Yeah.
we were able to lower it.
We studied that and looked at what the voters have been doing and said,
So you need to tell them that at the annual meeting,
Right.
so they understand
Yeah.
that.
yes,
That, and, you know, looking at it, you say, well, how can we lower it? It's more than last year.
yeah,
Good.
matter of fact,
yep. And
it was so much higher, we're forecasting that next year we bring it down. You know, $25 doesn't seem like a lot, but the direction is what we wanna show people, is that we're not only bringing it down this year, we intend on bringing it down next year too.
Well, anytime it's going down, to me, you have to look at it, because everything in the world's going higher.
Yeah.
Everything, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden that's lowered, that's the, but, okay,
Yep.
good.
Well, we had a long
Yeah.
internal debate about that, and me being Nick, the new guy here, was why are we lowering the water fee. But finally, they won me over. And in theory, the water fee should pretty much just cover the operational costs on an annual basis
Yeah.
of the water system. Now, of course, it's gonna go a little higher than that, because you have to have some fluff room. But in the future, any major capital improvements will be done through taxes and not drawn from the water fees. So the water fees pay mainly our water operator, electrical, chemicals, you know, emergent maintenance, repairs, things like that.
One of the big expenses in operations for the water system is electricity, the pumps.
Yeah.
Pumping the stuff from 500 feet at the DPW well to 1,200 feet and stations in between. It's like we have 2 skyscrapers in Eidelweiss between Rhinebeck and Oak. And it's like we have to pump water like no other municipality in Massachusetts does, because they're not feeding houses on mountains.
Right.
So, I won't belabor it, but we also are looking at ways of reducing the cost of electricity going into the future. And that's possibly joining the coalition. New Hampshire has a coalition for electricity that 1/3 of the state is part of the coalition. And they buy electricity as a unit. They go into the market as a big buyer. And they have an organization where they have people that manage the hedging of electrical costs. The interesting thing is, Eversource is lowering their bill, lowering their charges per kilowatt hour this month, I think.
Yeah.
And we're waiting to see what that kilowatt per hour, we think it's down around 8 cents they're going down to. Last fall, we were paying 16 cents to a broker
Yeah.
that was set up by the previous board. We stopped that. We're waiting to see what Eversource's new price is. Then we're gonna see if the coalition makes sense to us, if it's enough of a savings. But I'll stop there and not get into the coalition. We'll stay on subject here.
Stick on
Yes.
track.
Anything on, Nancy, on the
No, nothing
water
else?
system? Any other questions on the water system?
Okay.
We'll go to the first warrant article, which is Article number 2, after you elect the officers. So New Hampshire DRA requires any warrant article that's gonna borrow money has to appear first in the warrant. So that's why Article number 2 is an article we call road improvements. And this is to raise $50,000 for road improvements. This is the warrant article that we're asking the voters to allow us the option, if our cash flow strategy in FEMA and New Hampshire Emergency Management does the right things, later in this year, or possibly into next year, we may actually borrow this money. If it looks like we can get good things done and that FEMA's gonna reimburse 75% of it, we could buy down the loan right away. So this is not a loan. As soon as it gets voted in March, we go and take it out. We may never have to take this loan out, but we're asking the voters for this option.
And if you do take it out, is there a term for that loan?
It will be 10 years,
Okay.
What was the percentage?
and,
It can't be a line of credit.
You know,
We have to take the loan.
right,
And
Yep.
only a portion of it would hit next year's taxes, if you were to take it.
The first
So-
payment.
the first payment, which is not in the warrant article, which will be definitely corrected before we get to the annual meeting, is $3,325.
so we budget for that.
So that is what the budget for this warrant article will be.
For 2025.
Yep, for 2025.
Which wouldn't get spent if you don't take the loan.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Again, it's all
And-
contingent on FEMA, we're getting reimbursed. If they do, and that works out, then let's
Then-
take out the loan so we can keep the road improvements going.
Right.
right,
I think there's evidence that we can't explain this.
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We've
Well,
been
we've
back-
been wondering whether or not we're gonna be able to actually
We've been
explain
banging our
any
heads
of
against
this.
This is a good test night.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're very smart people.
Yeah,
Very cool.
an excellent audience, yes.
Yes.
Christian may know something about FEMA by March and everything.
I know.
Oh, we've
Yeah,
learned
yeah.
all
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
about FEMA,
Oh, my God. Okay.
this year, and thankfully Mark was aware of most of the stuff that had happened from the prior year, so he sort of led us through, what FEMA was offering and the projects, this year, which has been very helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
So Article 3 and Article 4 are the budgets that Wood and Nancy went through. And those are the grand totals that are at the bottom of the spreadsheet that you just looked at. Article 5. To see if the village will raise and appropriate $6,000 for the purpose of creating ditches or repairing existing ditches of the VDOE road, including ledge removal as needed. This is not associated with any FEMA stuff. And let me explain this. We want to hire a contractor that has an excavator with a special tool on the arm, not a bucket that digs, but a jackhammer, a big jackhammer that will smash into ledge. And we have ledge in ditches that have always been there, and the water comes down the ditch and hits the ledge and shoots out onto the roads. And the DPW has identified more than a dozen locations where that's happening. And the contractor that we would like to use is an Ossipee, and he charges $1,600 a day. And we're budgeting this $6,000. And the reason we can't charge FEMA is this isn't damage that happened at the result of the storm. This is rock that won't go away on its own.
No storm has taken it out.
Yeah.
No, we
Nope.
have to, and
Nope,
so
it's still there.
it's on us. We can't make this part of the FEMA deal.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Engineering the Grissom Road culvert. In 2017,
Yep,
DuBois and King did a design to upgrade the Grissom Road culvert and fix it on a permanent basis. And that was to take the pipe, the 48-inch culvert pipe that was installed in 1962 in a ravine, and then the ravine was filled in with gravel to make the road cut across the ravine. So it's this pipe that's undersized at the bottom of the ravine, and when trees come down in a big storm when it floods, which is done twice now, it did it in 2012, in June 5th in 2012, and it did it again in 2023 in this July FEMA storm, July 17th. Both times that culvert couldn't handle the storm. It filled up and overflowed the road and started to take the road out, took the road down 8 feet, washed all 8 feet of gravel, 22 feet of road surface, 40 feet of road bed, downstream through the Bergdorf culvert, wiped that out again, and took the water main out with it. That water main is gonna be another important story that we
that we'll get.
have for you today.
Yep.
That's got pieces of it in various places. The whole Grissom, Constance, Bergdorf, Granville, all of the roads in that area are fed by one water main. And it's the one that goes through the Grissom culvert situation. Right now, that road is closed because we don't have a vote of up to $600,000 to fix that culvert. This warrant article is to pay for the engineer to look at a lower cost solution than the 12-foot wide
Box culvert.
Box culvert.
6 feet high, precasted concrete box culvert that's proposed that would cost over 500,000, close to 600,000. There's another design where you put 2 concrete feet down, footers, the length of it, and you build a steel arched culvert. So the bottom of the culvert isn't concrete, it's the natural bed. And the concrete footers are not in the waterway at all. And the metal part isn't in the water, it's above it, it's kind of makes a bridge out of it. And it's done in metal sections. It's like building a Kwanzaa hut underground and then filling it back in. So that's what this warrant article is for, is to fund the engineering of that. In the meantime, FEMA has a consolidated resource center of people that do costs. And they're looking at what they project the cost of the box culvert is. But we want to see if we can get this done in a cheaper way and get the permitting done for it. So that's what this warrant article is about. Want to take IT?
Yep.
Twitter?
Okay, well, I don't have to tell anybody, if you stay in touch with the news, every day there's some new article or several new articles about scams out there, weaknesses in certain, online presences and, banks, financial institutions, everything's sort of subject to getting your money stolen. And guess what? That happened to us back in March. We had $14,000 stolen out of our Bank of New Hampshire account by what we're beginning to learn was a pretty sophisticated operation that the police understand how it works now, sort of, but they still haven't tracked down the perpetrators. So anyway, no, we're just none of us here are experts in cybersecurity or even really IT managed services. So we need an expert, outside expert, to come in and be our on-call service to do this. Because we never had it before. We had a volunteer, but that volunteer was not available to come up when we had the cybersecurity breach, and we didn't have email. Everything went down. He wasn't able to help us out at all. We need someone we can call right now. We got a problem. They can come in and they can respond on a moment's notice. But even more important, can put in place the security procedures that we need right now. Now, that's not to say we've done a lot of good work since those problems happened, but again, none of us are experts here.
Right.
We need an expert. So that's what this warrant article is about. It's basically bringing on a service to do IT managed services and cybersecurity, and we think it's a bargain at $4,100 a year.
So why is it an article instead of a line item? You're really proposing an article to put in a line item in the budget, right?
It will be,
So it's gonna go on, the following year will be in the budget?
Yes.
next year, it will be in the
Yeah.
budget.
So is
But
it required
because-
to do it this way?
Because this is the first time that this
Line item.
this line item would exist for the village district. The most appropriate way to do it
To have the voters
is to
decide.
have it
That's fine.
be a warrant article.
It's recommended that that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I asked the same thing, Bob, but I deferred to the two experts there.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolutely no-brainer. I mean,
Our insurance company basically is saying, we know you only have 2 computers and you have 1 person working in the office, but look what happens. And if you want us to insure you for this kind of stuff, then you need a real IT strategy. And
Right.
you can't have, like, I could do it, but a commissioner shouldn't be doing it at all. It should be somebody who's
right,
a third party outside
Yeah.
of the organization
Yeah.
that's focused and has their own insurance on this.
Yeah.
You get it.
Right.
And they monitor the threats before it even occurs. Like, we'd probably be hearing from them before we're even seeing anything.
right.
Yep.
To give you an idea, the police got a search warrant for JP Morgan Bank, even though our bank was the Bank of New Hampshire. And what Wood was saying is, what JP Morgan investigation, this is a big operation. that found little Eidelweiss to hit. We're one of many that this organization has hit.
Yes.
And is continuing to hit. J.P. Morgan can't nail him down. And we're told that this may be turned over to the FBI. If there is an FBI.
If there's an FBI.
Yeah, if there is one.
Cash Patel will take it on
We
himself.
really shouldn't be laughing. It's not a funny
But
situation.
no, it's not.
Well,
funny at all,
It
scary.
isn't, you're right.
But I understand it, and I think it's a good idea.
So just an associated question, so $14,000 that we lost, were we covered by insurance for that?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're hoping.
The
it's
insurance
something.
company is aware. They're waiting for the police to finish their investigation and to see how far that goes. And then they will take action on the insurance claim. But the insurance claim has already been put in. Like I said, they're just not able to take action on it just yet until the police finish their investigation.
It's
They
been
just wanna
brutal.
validate that
I mean, for everything that we had to deal with,
Yeah.
this board,
Yeah.
the way
Oh.
we learned about it's close to a year ago.
Almost a year, yeah.
Okay? So the first thing is we tell the police and we talk to the bank. The bank starts to tell us, "Oh, we're gonna reimburse you for this." Then all of a sudden the bank's saying, "No, it's your fault." And all of a sudden we have to prove that it wasn't anybody in Madison in our office that did it. And the police are trying to get a search warrant, and they need information from the Bank of New Hampshire. And the Bank of New Hampshire says for months they didn't understand the question that the Madison police was asking. They dragged their heels. Finally, they got the search warrant that led to the J.P. Morgan, was the bank that this all actually happened through. And we're finally at the point that the insurance company isn't saying to us, "We can't do anything for you because it's not clear who's at fault here." It's becoming clear that it wasn't anybody in Madison that
Yeah.
was at fault.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a suspect in this.
And JP Morgan is used a lot by other banks as a way to transfer money.
Yes.
That's
So
it,
it's not
that was
necessarily
it.
their
Yes.
problem.
That's exactly why they.
It was an
used it.
ACH transfer that's
Right.
how they stole the money.
That's how they got it.
Yeah,
Yep, they piggybacked onto a ACH transfer,
yeah.
so,
We went through it personally a year ago with the IRS, someone stole our identity.
Oh, wow.
Our tax bills.
Yeah, they
Oh.
move around, and we have all the stuff on our accounts to block that,
Mhm.
but somehow our social security was taken.
Yeah,
yep.
And we had to wait 2 years to get
pretty good refund.
a pretty good refund, but we owe back. Here you go, now give it back to me.
Yeah.
Now they're after us because they paid us interest for
And
what
now they say
owed
we
us, and
owe
then we
money
owe
on
them
the
interest.
interest they paid us.
Yeah.
But the good news is maybe the IRS will be next.
Wow, that'd be something.
Article 8 is a copier that, who's telling this story?
We actually have, they're still using, believe it or not, a copier that was there in 2017 in the office. Needless to say, the thing just was giving it up, you know? So we have looked into a lease, a 4-year lease for a copier scanner, and the amount for this year will be the $888, and we'll be able to continue to produce all the proper documents that we need to do over the course of every year by having this piece of equipment. We actually already have the scanner in-house, so it's already in the office. And because you have to be compliant with the laws, there is a escape clause, so that should the voters for some reason think we should keep with something from Walmart or Staples for doing all of our documentation,
That's on its last legs anyway.
then they would, we would be able to give it back. But yes, we think that this is a great thing to do. It's a beautiful little machine. It does black and white as well as copies, and it will also allow us with it does the
PDFA.
PDFAs.
And that was the
And that's
huge
one of the
thing.
big things, because that is now the way that the state of New Hampshire will allow us to archive historical records.
Right.
There's a format that,
They have to be in PDF-A.
PDFA is a
They can't
format
do all.
that, A is for archive. It's a file format that's municipalities are accepting as a way of not having to store paper anymore. The law said we had to keep all the paper, and Wood and Doug Prescott worked on all the paper that we have. But now, we have a scanner that will produce PDAs directly, and we can get out of having to store paper. This is a big unit, and we pay we don't own the unit, we pay $74 a month. They monitor the copier, scanner, printer from their location, the office business location. They supply the ink, color, and black and white. We pay $74 a month to have it at our site. We pay them 8 cents for every black and white copy that we make with it. We pay them 12 cents for every color copy we make with it. And if it breaks,
It's theirs.
they know about it maybe before we do and come and fix it or replace
Scanning's
it.
not extra.
Yeah.
Right, but my gut feeling tells me, I haven't done an actual analysis yet, but just even the 8 cents a copy for black and white, 12 cents for color, with the fact for you're gonna get toner, repairs and maintenance, we'd be spending more money with that Staples printer buying toner and repairs and all that on it than we'll be paying.
Well, my aggravation alone.
Right,
I
and
was
that
gonna
too, yes.
The old printer scanner was driving her crazy, and now it's just gonna be us three that drive her crazy.
And we're pretty good at it.
Is it 4 year lease? At that point, is it ours? Is it 888, yeah, for 4 years, or is
For
it?
the.
Each.
That's for this year.
That's each.
I believe it's
That's-
I believe it's an operational lease, not a capital lease.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that's for this year.
Okay,
And
that would be
next
math
year,
wise.
it'll be in the,
It'll be like.
admin line item,
Okay.
Yeah.
you know? Because that's where we get our paper and all that stuff is already in the budget.
Yep.
So we will simply just add the lease into the budget.
In year 5, you'll get a new one.
Yes, that would be the intent.
Yeah, they give us, it's like, you know, we used to trade in a car for the brand new
Yep.
model, some people used to do it every year, but we'll do it every 4 years.
Article 9 is the gravel article that we talked about before. This is the 13,000 we didn't use in 2024 that went into the unassigned fund balance that we're asking the voters to let us actually put it on the roads. Any questions on Article 9? We kind of covered that.
Yep. we
Next
covered.
page is Article 10. Water lines. To see if the village will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the purpose of engineering a water line from Aspen to Bergdorf. I mentioned earlier that the area of Grissom Road, Constance Place, Bergdorf, Granville, and the houses that are actually on 113 in that area get their water from Granville, from running down the property lines. There's no water main out on Route 113 feeding those houses, but they are on the water system, and they have water coming in. This is all dependent on that Grissom culvert not falling apart again in the next big rainstorm. So, what we wanna do, we don't know when it is that we'll come up with a solution that the voters wanna pay to have that fixed properly. So, to manage the situation, we wanna put 2 isolation valves on either side of the Grissom culvert so that we can shut it off if it gets damaged, or if the voters decide that they wanna pay for a solution for it, that we can shut it off and do the construction. But when we shut that off, or if it gets damaged again, even more severely than it's happened twice, that whole area is without water. That's quite a few houses. So, we wanna bring water from Aspen. Actually, it runs down from Aspen to one house on Bergdorf. and then there's no pipe between the one house on Bergdorf, on one side of the Bergdorf culvert, to the newest house that a water line was extended the other way to get to what was a Habitat for Humanity construction site. We want to make the connection between those two houses. Now there are two ways that water comes into that whole area. So we could actually shut these new isolation valves off and take the Grissom culvert out and reconstruct it, or if nature comes again and takes it all out and washes the whole thing down, we can shut it off and let the water come through Bergdorf, and no house will be without water, even though the Grissom water main is gone. So this is just for the engineering.
Yeah.
And then to actually put the pipe in, we're going to use capital reserve money. We're not gonna raise tax money for this. We're not gonna use the water fees. We already have the money in capital reserves to do this.
Yep.
We just wanna have a bid package for what we're estimating to be about 250 feet of pipe. And we're standardizing on a 4-inch fused, high-density polyethylene pipe from now on. We're not gonna use 2-inch pipe anywhere. Everything we do from now on is gonna be at least 4-inch pipe. That's even in the middle of a 2-inch water main run. Anytime you put an increased size anywhere in the water system, the capacity improves. More gallons per minute will move through a pipe that has a 2-inch pipe run that has a new 4-inch middle. The more 4-inch you put in the middle of any pipe, the more gallons per minute you can get through the whole system. So, that's Article 10. Okay, Article 11.
Oh.
You have gotten notifications if you're a water user that the Muddy Beach well field has a little problem with uranium. And our water operator has been watching the test results, and we've had instances this year where we had to send multiple notices out that it was continuing to creep up over the acceptable limit of uranium in the water. And the water operator said, historically, it's always tickled that line and got back down. He said he needs to see a trend that will make him for the first time say, this is a problem that we have to address directly. This is not something that we just need to watch. So we were watching it all the way through November. And the Muddy Beach well facility has multiple long-term problems. It has the uranium problem. It has a tank that doesn't have access, manhole access, manhatch access. It's folklore has it that used to be an ocean buoy that Great Northern installed in the 60s as a tank, as a low-cost tank. So no one's ever been inside that tank to see what the state of it is. We've relined the other tanks, we've done inspections on it, but that tank has never been inspected. Another huge problem we have is they can't figure out why the communication system for SCADA that controls when to turn the pumps on and send water into the system to send it to Rhineac and send it through the distribution lines to houses. For some reason, that communication system fails every winter. It works in the summertime and doesn't work in the wintertime. And they haven't been able to figure it out.
Yeah,
The
historically.
experts for the SCADA say it's not a problem with trees. They thought if they cut down trees, they could fix the communication problem. But they claim they don't believe that that's the case. So, if we were to install uranium filtration equipment in Muddy Beach to solve the uranium problem, it would be the expense of buying the equipment, to be the expense of maintaining that equipment. You have to change the filters out. But a huge expense is the waste byproduct, which is uranium. The cost of getting rid of the uranium per cubic foot is incredibly expensive. So we decided before the final straw had the water operators say, that's it, we gotta stop the way that we're using Muddy Beach, we'd already decided that we wanted to stop Muddy Beach and begin to put a second gravel-packed municipal well at DPW 1 in the aquifer as a backup to the existing well. The existing well at DPW 1 can provide more water than the village needs. It can pump over 160 gallons per minute into the system. And the engineers calculated it out is that we would have to have a lot more growth and a lot more water use before we actually started to approach having a problem with getting enough water into the system. And so the state has got regulations that say you must have a backup. We can't just depend on DPW 1 physically by itself as the only way we can get water. They like the idea that we put a second well in the same well field. Ideally, to find another sweet spot away from this thing, should something happen to the well area itself, that the second well is in the same problem situation as the backup well is in the same problem situation as the first well. But that would be acquiring property big enough to have a protected wellhead area on it, and that the cost of getting that permitted, the cost of the hydrogeologist doing the studies, and the cost of the test wells like we had to do to get this well in there is way more expensive than getting the state to say, we're going to approve for you to put one in the same well field. That covers us. We're happy with you having a second well. Ideally, it would be in another location, but we're not proposing that expense. We want to go for this backup well. And this begins the engineering, the permitting to get that done. In the meantime, the state is saying to us, we're okay with you. We haven't had any water come out of Muddy Beach into the system since November 26th. They're saying to us, you cannot disable that. You must keep that available. If something happens, we want you to be able to use that. So we're not letting you kill it. We want you to actually continue to test the water as if it's in use right now. Because we may tell you you have to put it back in use. We may tell you you have to put the uranium filtration system in there. But in the meantime, we like the idea of you getting away from it. We're agreeing with you. We like the idea of you going for what we call well B at DPW. The existing one is well A. We're calling this one well B.
There's also a water operator who suggested that, because we were all in the mindset like, what can we do to rehab Muddy Beach between, the concrete, there is no concrete floor, and the tank, and the uranium filtration equipment, and the SCADA system, and we were looking at that, and, the dot, ding, cha-ching, 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 and water operator said, why not put a second straw in the same, well field, same aquifer that we have DPW1, which operates like a champ. And I think you told me...
He was fearful that something would physically happen to DPWA, because it's been in there since 1995. But the engineer did a little research and said, don't worry about the age of that well.
Right.
That well was constructed, that has a lifetime of, they're projecting 50 years. So the water operator originally wanted to put a second well in there because he was fearful of the A well just breaking down. But now we're doing it for a different reason, is that we're getting away from Muddy Beach altogether, and this is going to be the state-approved backup for well A. All set with that?
Yep.
Okay. So the next article is executive stipends. We're looking to see if the village will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,376 to increase stipends. Your current Board of Commissioners gets $300 a month. It's been $300 a month since I first started working for the district in 2009. The treasurer gets $250 a month, and it's been that way for that many years and more.
18.
18 years. that she's been the treasurer. The moderator has never had an increase in his annual stipend. Same with the clerk, same with the supervisors of the checklist. Those are the three ladies that check you in to the annual meeting, give you your ballots. If we have a secret ballot, they're the ones that count everything and give Bob the results so that they can get announced at the annual meeting. And these ladies have not had any type of an increase. So we're proposing that the treasurer be increased to $400 monthly, that the moderator be increased to $367 annually. We did this on percentages, that's why it's a
Yeah.
odd
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
We can round you if you really want us to, Bob. The clerk would be $367. The supervisors of the checklist, the same, going to the $367. And the treasurer and the commissioners would go to $400 monthly. Just a side note, the soon-to-be 5 selectmen for the town of Madison get more than double what we get, and they have higher, they have,
What, they get 7,000 annually? don't they?
yeah, they get 7,000
Well more than
annually, so
double. They
way
get
more than double
More
what
than
we
10
get.
times, 15
Yeah.
times what we get.
And they meet every other week.
Yeah, and they meet every other day, every other week,
Yeah.
and they also have department heads. You know, they have Bob Boyd, they have the 2 girls in the office, they have a planning board, they have
They have far more staff.
everything falls onto the commissioners for the village district. You know, so we're certainly not getting that type of increase, nor would we even propose such a, nor would we even propose such a thing.
Yeah.
Well-
We actually went back and forth like, should we even propose anything for us? But we're like,
It's time.
it's time. It's just been too many years since anybody's gotten any type of increase.
Well, again,
Okay.
I'm the new guy here, and I had to go, Mark, you've been here 50 years. You've been to every annual meeting, or so you say. I mean, when's the last time you ever saw a vote to increase the stipend to the commissioners? And you basically said,
Never.
I
Never.
don't remember ever.
I was first elected in 1986, the first of 5 non-consecutive terms through this one. I can't remember it ever changing. Do you ever remember a vote?
Well, I've only been involved 20 years, but no.
Only 20, no.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 40
I'm
years.
saying,
it's
I've
never
only been
changed.
20, I haven't seen it in
Crazy.
20.
Okay.
so
Yeah.
clearly.
Article 13,
Right.
That's funny.
sale of a VDA owned lot. Last year, the voters approved a new ordinance, the green space ordinance, where we won't sell Eidelweiss lots unless it's to an abutter that will merge a lot with their lot. And we're protecting green space where we're not selling lots to have new houses built with its own septic system. And we have a property owner on Bristenstock that wants to buy the abutting lot to their house. They want to make this second home on Bristenstock their retirement home, and they want to build a garage, and they want to put it on the lot that's next to them. So they followed the ordinance, they paid $75 administrative fee, which will be, if the voters approve this warrant article, the lot will be auctioned off to only the abutters of record. The minimum bid is the assessed value of the lot by the town, which is now at $16,900. So that's where any bid by an abutter has to start. So, of the abutters, one of them will be the high bidder. They'll have to pay the title search, the deed creation, and the merging of the Eidelweiss lot with their property lot.
So the question is, if the sale goes through and you get the $16,900, does that go into the unassigned fund balance?
That's revenue.
And it can then be applied to the 2025 budget?
It's not reimbursement like the FEMA money.
Right.
We can't, that has to go into the unassigned fund balance.
Right.
Right, so, cause I see a challenge for 25,000, but the 16,000 would help offset that.
I didn't get the challenge part.
I think the
Article 11,
voters
you
are
mean?
gonna have a hard time with the
Article 11?
$25,000.
Article 11, you mean?
Yes.
Something like
Oh, for the engineering
Overall
design
racing.
of the well.
Maybe, but-
Placing a second well?
Oh, you're looking at paying for
Yeah,
one
so
article with the other one?
Plus or minus.
Saying, can it be offset? I mean, could be looked at that way.
Yeah, right, I work for a bank, so it's all in
Yeah.
and out.
Yeah, the state doesn't let elected officials move the P around like that too much.
Yeah,
Well, there was a lot of discussion, I think, last year for that ordinance change about the abutting properties. Wasn't that just last year?
yes, it was
Yeah.
last year.
So, I mean, we went through all that discussion and everybody knew the purpose of that.
Right.
And here's the first example.
Yes, this
Right.
is a
So,
yes,
I think
first
this
test
would
of it.
be fine.
Brainer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So-
no-brainer, yeah.
So what would happen is if this does get passed and it happens somewhere early this year, or certainly by September, it would be listed and the district gets the 16,000 or 17,000 or whatever the final bid is, it would be listed as income for the district for this year, which is an automatic offset to this year's tax rate.
So you
So
would do it
it'll-
that way rather than putting it something, like the
The-
sale of the lodge.
Yeah.
It'll happen like the sale of the lodge.
Yes. Yes, only this one will happen appropriately that way.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah,
the,
the intent will be for it to do that versus the lodge, the intent wasn't for it to happen that way.
Correct.
That's- Yep.
correct, but it will have the same
It
effect.
doesn't go into any unassigned fund, it basically offsets the,
It offsets taxes
Offsets-
because it will be
yeah.
income for the
Right.
district for this year.
yep.
Okay.
Good, good.
If we specify it to do that.
No, it will be income.
It's classified as an.
Unless the article were to specify to do something else with the money,
Correct. And it does not.
but, right.
All set in that warrant article?
Mhm.
Article 14 and 15 is about the communications tower at the summit. We're proposing that there's a contract that's up for renewal, and we're proposing that the village get the same amount of money that the radio station pays to have their communication tower on top of the summit. And we haven't actually begun the negotiation, but we're hoping that we have a new agreement that has to be ratified by the voters at the annual meeting, and these are the warrant articles that will do it. We haven't done it yet.
You think you'll have it by March?
We
If-
hope to.
If we don't have any discussion with the sheriff's office or with the town of Conway prior to the annual meeting, then what would wind up happening is we would probably remove the $500 a month and ratify the contracts as they've existed since 1984, which is when the sheriffs first started their communications coming up there, and then work with them over the course of this year to start income for 2026, if we have to. But hopefully, we'll be able to talk to them very shortly and get everything set so that the district taxpayers do get a little bit of offset, a little more income.
Just to give you an idea, the taxpayers of Eidelweiss invested over $250,000 to improve the road where Oak Ridge Road starts at Eidelweiss Drive and goes up to number 19. $250,000 just for that section of road. It's pretty nice to have a road that goes all the way up to the top of a mountain where there's a communications center, and use our building, our land, and that road, which we not only put money in like that, but we maintain it, our trucks we use salt on it, and
Because there is a house there now. so-
Oh, there's multiple houses up there, you've got all those roads.
and they're paying for it. And why isn't everybody paying for it?
I agree.
Right,
That's our theory.
So procedurally, if you don't have something to ratify,
we might skip these.
Don't think how we do that, to just, you have to do something, oh, okay.
Procedurally,
up
we
and
would
discuss
probably
the
wind up
deal.
just keeping the sheriff's agreement, because that is the contract that has existed since 1984,
Right.
and
Right, so either way,
therefore that
we're
would
voting
be,
to ratify something.
yes, we're going to be
Either existing
ratifying
or the-
something.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Well, it's gone a long time without being ratified at all, so
Yeah.
you say it might be ratified, but
There's been no discussions over the years to increase it.
The last time it was ratified was 5 years ago,
Okay.
so,
Article 16, highway and parking ordinance. Right now, the highway and parking ordinance was one of two ordinances that was moved out of the control of the commissioners, which is specified by the New Hampshire statutes, and moved into the hands of the legislative body. We see a lot of problems with the way that this ordinance is currently written, and we think that it should go back to being under the state statute where the Board of Commissioners will recommend changes to it and have hearings, and then the commissioners will change the ordinance. So that's what this warrant article is doing, is asking the legislative body to move the authority back into the hands of the commissioners for this highway and parking ordinance. Any questions about that? And that's the warrant articles.
did we get a petition article? Was anything brought into the office?
Anybody?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
There's no petition.
So no
warrant
petition
articles
warrant articles. Hmm?
The ones that we're putting together are commissioners now.
So if Articles
This
6,
should be a nice meeting this year.
10 and 11, they're water related, but they'll be funded now through taxation, so they'll be added to the budget.
Yeah, I was noticing that, I looked at Article 11, in the state form, which is, this is written on, it's not specifying
If
how,
it doesn't say it's coming out of a specific
Defaults to
fund
taxes?
or water fees, it comes out of taxes.
and nothing on this is coming out of water fees.
Correct.
Anything else? 717,
Oh, wow.
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 Pretty darn good.
so you should have this annual meeting over in
It
an hour and
looks-
15 minutes, Bob.
Well,
No
let's see.
pressure, no
Yeah.
pressure.
So overall in general,
Yeah.
yeah, agreeing what we're sort of
I'm curious,
trying to
Tony,
line things up as?
why you think that 25,000 will be a problem, especially when it has to do with the water system? If we lose our water, that's it.
Oh, no,
Oh, no,
it's,
no.
I don't have a problem with it. My thing of the percentage, initially 1.2% increase. When you add all that in, my rough calculations is about 4.8% increase. So, and even that's reasonable.
Yeah, well I was obviously doing my calculations before the warrants.
That was the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah,
That's
that was
that's the way it is every year,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The only comment I would make is that everybody has received letters, more than one, about the uranium
Yeah.
Yeah.
issue.
Yes.
If they don't think that we should do something about it, then there's something wrong with them.
right.
Caused by the uranium.
Yes.
Don't say that
Dual
because
effects.
people, I don't know who's listening, but don't believe that.
No, there are a lot of,
I,
there are a lot of people who are concerned about that.
oh, for sure.
It's hard to
Yeah,
understand
absolutely.
what's happening with that, and it's,
Right, at least it's, okay, we're doing something.
one of the
You
things,
know?
Yes.
one of the things that I think wasn't clear to people is, the commissioners couldn't just stop it.
Yeah, you can't just, yeah.
We don't have the authority to say, we're not using Muddy Beach anymore. It has to be the water operator that makes the first call, and the state
State has
has
to
to approve it.
Yeah.
Right.
We're spectators in this. We're the ones, Wood was the one running up to Staples and having 500 copies of the letter of notification printed and getting it out, only to have the next test fail, and he had to go and do it
Do it
again.
again.
And like, that's our part of it.
Right, right. Well, I don't know if we ever had a discussion about the uranium issue at an annual meeting, I don't recall that.
It
So
wasn't
this
there
will
last
come up, and that will be some discussion, those kinds of questions. And
Right. But if they read the
Yes.
letter properly,
I
the state
understand.
said, if this isn't a real merge, if this is not
They'd
anything to
shut it
get
down.
alarmed about at this point. And
Right, but it was more than a year ago, or about that, when we started hearing about the problem, all of last, I mean, I would get people say, what's the whole story? I don't know, it's not, you know,
Right.
so I think that it's on people's minds and
Yeah.
concerns, so.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
I think it's.
it's gotta,
I-
it has got to be
like I said,
addressed,
I'd be shocked if
absolutely,
they-
but.
And with all the other issues with Muddy Beach, the fact that we've never been able to inspect that tank because we don't have any access to it. The building needs to be fixed. There is no floor, so if we were gonna wind up with some type of uranium testing and treatment, then, which is, the equipment's not the expensive part. Getting rid of the uranium is the expensive
And
part,
that's all-
and that
And
would
it's
be an
ongoing.
ongoing,
Yeah,
constant
Oh, I get it.
contact, you
But
know?
But even before that, we require a new tank, a new floor,
Yeah.
Right.
and rehab of the
Basically,
building.
a whole new
It
well
seems like a
anyway, or more.
no-brainer to me, but,
Yeah.
you
The
know.
whole,
Right.
the whole facility is in a residential area without a big protected radius.
Yeah.
There's a house a short distance away from it.
Right.
And the wells themselves are not like the gravel pack municipal well that's at DPW one. These are like backyard wells
Yeah,
that are into bedrock and are influenced by a stream that's running over the top of it. It's just not a great. In the '60s, when the developer was slapping it in, it was ideal. He was in and out of there. Now it doesn't suit how big Eidelweiss is.
Right. Been a lot of changes since the beginning.
Oh, yes, yes.
There's a lot more houses here now than there were when I got here.
Yep,
We're coming in,
good.
Well, thank you.
all right?
How can a budget hearing be fun?
Because like Dinah said, we have a smart audience.
Thank you, Adrian. Motion to adjourn?
yep,
Motion to adjourn, aye,
Second.
second.
Aye.
Favor? Aye. Thank you, Jennifer.
yep.
Thank you for coming.
I'm not sure we have to really-
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer. Hi, how do you do?
Good,
Yeah.
very good. I'm the moderator.
I know.
Oh, you do,
I've
okay.
seen it
Oh,
a
so,
million times.
great.